Whether you're a pro at performing various types of magic or you've never performed in your life, in this video I'm going to teach you my key tips and secrets to perform your first mentalism effect. There's some absolute gold in this video, so I urge you to watch through to the very end so you can be well on your way to performing some incredible mentalism. What is good, guys? It is Reed and welcome back to another video. Today we have Mentalism 101 episode 14, all about trying out mentalism for the first time. So you've worked your way through the Mentalism 101 series. You've learned about creating your character, creating presentation, your style, how to practice mentalism. You've learned about propless mentalism. You've learned a ton of techniques from billet work, peaks, switches, and now you're thinking about starting to perform mentalism. You're gonna go out and you wanna try it for the first time or one of the first few times. How do you go about that first performance? Whether you've come from performing other types of magic or you've never performed at all, in this video I'm gonna talk to you about some of the key tips for performing mentalism for the first time and some great ideas that you can do for your first performance. As always, guys, if you would like to check out some private lessons, they are linked down in the description. You can get some one-on-one help from me and take your card magic or mentalism to the next level. If you'd like another way to take your mentalism to the next level and get bonus tutorials every single month, go check out my mentalism membership linked up there or in the description. Let's not waste too much more time, guys. If you like this series and would like to see more, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, drop me a like, leave me a comment, and with all that said, let's jump right into the video. So let's start here. What makes mentalism different from magic? Because you might be thinking, well, I'm a seasoned performer of card magic or stage magic or whatever it happens to be. Why do I need to watch this video about performing mentalism? It can't be that hard. It can't be that different, is it? And while it's not hard, I think there are a lot of key differences that make mentalism and all other forms of magic different in terms of the performance side. First of all, mentalism focuses a lot on presentation. There are other forms of magic like card magic that can stand solely on the magic that happens. There are certain effects in card magic like the transposition where I don't think you want to add too much presentation to that. I think that is a great effect to let breathe, let the magic speak for itself. I think it's more impactful that way. But there is no piece of mentalism I can think of that I would recommend not attaching a performance to. A lot of card magic does benefit from some type of presentation, but a lot of times the cards can sort of act as a crutch, right? You can have this sort of poor presentation and just use the cards and the magic as a crutch, and you're not really focused on the presentation. So mentalism is a lot more about creating these personal connections, these psychological connections with your audience, and really intriguing them by more so what you say. If you think about it, mentalism is usually not that visual. So it's a lot of, they will think of something and then will react to me revealing it. It's all words, right? Even if there are props involved, the reveal is often all words and very linguistic. There aren't these flashy moves to rely on. So it's really important that you get sort of these recapping, these framings, and I just made a video all about recapping if you want to check that out. It also completely applies to mentalism, but this is why some of these things, presentation, recapping, scripting, performance, are so important when it comes to mentalism, where other styles it may not always be so important. And one thing that's really interesting about mentalism, particularly if you've come in from a card magic background, is it relies on you shifting your focus from, hey, look at me, look what I can do, to let's explore together, let's share an experience, let's explore your minds together. That's oftentimes what's going to happen. Let's try an experiment, those type of things. Oftentimes card magic, whether you're doing a gambling demonstration, whether you're doing a triumph, whatever it is, a lot of times those can be a look at me, look what I can do. And even if you try to shift the performance away from that through the presentation, a lot of times the spectators are left feeling like, oh wow, that was great, you did really good, right? That's what they say. You did really good. That was really impressive. You are so good. And when it comes to mentalism, you'll often get reactions a little more in line with, that was amazing, like this experience changed me. Or they'll say, this was an incredible experience. It's more about the experience, less so about you. And that's one of the things I love about mentalism. And don't get me wrong, there are some mentalism performers who still embody the, hey, look at me, look what I can do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that character. But there is a significant difference that you're gonna notice when you start performing mentalism, where it's less about you and, again, relying on the crutch of the props, and it's more so about the experience that you create through the presentation. And I think another thing that is often overlooked when it comes to mentalism that's important to highlight is the pacing. The pacing of mentalism is so different. Mentalism is slower, it's more sort of conversational, and the impact of mentalism feels deeply personal. So oftentimes, that's why I say mentalism usually hits harder, and I always do my card magic set before mentalism, because if I go and read someone's mind and I, tell them their mom's name, Well, I can't follow that up with a triumph. Any card trick, the best card trick, I could just never follow that up with because it's personal. It hits them deep. And again, the beats are a bit slower. It's generally more drawn out. There's more presentation and talking that needs to happen before the magic happens. Generally, you got a lot more, work to do, talking to do before the magic happens, so you better have an engaging presentation to keep them hooked and interested. So now that we kind of know the difference between magic and mentalism, my first tip for you when it comes to performing mentalism is to keep it simple and start small. Quick pause in your regularly scheduled program. I just want to let you guys know that I offer one-on-one virtual private magic lessons, perfect for beginner to advanced magicians and mentalists looking to improve their technique, sleight of hand, learn any of my best effects, learn the fundamentals of card magic, mentalism, or absolutely anything. This is the best value in magic in terms of getting you to become a better magician. I can sit with you one-on-one, tell you exactly what you personally need to work on, and teach you a bunch of the incredible material that I perform in my professional repertoire. If you decide to take a lesson with me, you will get 24/7 personal contact, you'll get custom curriculums, personally tailored effects. Every lesson you will get a downloadable recording, giving you something you can keep with you forever and always return to learn at your own pace. Over on my website, I have a bunch of reviews and testimonials, both video and written form, that you guys can check out. And if you'd like some more info or to book a lesson, all you have to do is head over to the link in the description, or feel free to send me an email at rf.sleights@gmail.com. Now, back to the video. You want to choose straightforward mentalism effects, ones that don't rely on too crazy of a method. Like when you're performing any type of magic for the first time, you're gonna pick something that's easy to do, simple, that you're confident with. So obviously all of that applies, and that kind of goes without saying, but I kind of want you to imagine yourself going back to the drawing board when you first perform mentalism. Imagine this is the first effect you're gonna perform. Even if you have a decade of performance experience, think of it as a different thing. Now you'll approach it with the lens of, hey, I need to pick something I'm super comfortable with, that's super simple, that allows me to focus on the presentation, right? When we usually tell someone to perform a card trick for the first time, the advice is often do a self-working trick so you can focus on what you are gonna say in the presentation, because you'll often be so focused on the moves you'll forget about the presentation. Same thing here. Focus on the moves and work out the presentation. Some examples of some really simple mentalism tricks that hit surprisingly hard. One of my favorites is just a playing card divination. You'll always be amazed, and I still am to this day, when I just either force a card or peek a card. I personally go for a force. I'll use my spread force if you want to learn that right here. But I'll tell them here, just touch a card, and I'll say, remember this one right here, this card is forced. And then I just close the deck and I let them shuffle it right away. That feels so clean. And then I just do a divination. I just guess the card they're thinking of. The key here is to not do this. Remember that card? Okay, you're thinking of the jack of whatever that was, right? Put some time into the presentation. Think about what you want to say and draw out that moment. Make it last a full minute. Try to hit a full minute before you tell them what their card is. Maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And a good tip for that is, especially with a card and whatever it is, try to always break it down into as many components as you have. So a playing card, we have color, suit, value. So that's 3 different things I can get a hit on. If it's an animal, I can get a hit on the type of animal, mammal, reptile, that sort of thing. I can get a hit on the color, I can get a hit on the texture, on the size or the location of where that animal lives. There's so much you can target to get these sort of extra hits. That'll also extend the presentation and make it way more interesting. So do that, and then come up with some process lines. I've talked all about process earlier in this series. You want to think about process, and process is the thing that your spectators believe is what you are doing that is making the magic happen, right? So it might be visualize that value for me, or imagine spelling it out in the air, or repeat that color of the card in your head. Whatever it is, those are all process lines. They don't actually do anything, but they're what the audience believes is our process for getting in their head. They should feel like, well, he can't guess my card unless I visualize it. He can't guess my card unless I imagine spelling it. That's what he needs to pick up on. This helps hide the method, but it also makes it a lot more interesting and presentationally engaging and makes it way more believable. If you just do a few of those little things, I gave you a couple of ideas for presentational lines, and you do a simple playing card force or a peek, you're gonna have an amazing piece of mentalism that's so great to practice. It's also great because you can transition from your card magic right into this, or you could even add it in. Right? I do an effect called unshuffling the colors, where at some point they just, remember a card, and then there's a whole bunch of card magic-y type effects that happen, but at some point, the card jumps across from one person's hands to the other. And I used to just have them tell me the card, because at that point they don't think that I know what it is. and I would just make it do the transposition. But I realized I could get an extra moment if I divined the card that they're supposedly thinking of, and it's gotten so much better reactions when I do it that way. Another thing is just a simple billet routine. I've talked about a couple of simple billet routines throughout in this series, which I will link up here. You do a simple peek of a word or a drawing duplication with one of the various peeking techniques I've talked about in this series, and then you just focus on the presentation and you reveal it. Another great option if you want to play around with some propless stuff, I think the propless star sign guest Peter Turner's monkeying around anagram is a great place to start. It's surefire and it's pretty simple and allows you to really kind of work on it that way. Now my next tip, sort of tying into what we just talked about, and I'll just touch on this briefly, is prioritizing presentation over method. Because it relies so much on storytelling and evicting that emotion, you really want to think about the presentation. So, you know, for a card trick, you'd sit down at your card table and you'd practice all the double lifts and all the switches and the controls, and you'd remember the sequencing of it all. Mentalism, you don't really approach it in the same way when you're practicing, right? How do you even practice reading someone's mind? So what you're going to do instead is, okay, yes, practice the billet switch, right? The mechanics of it. Practice the mechanical method, but usually it's just one little thing. It's just one little switch and, you know, you do the peak. Take out a notepad, use your phone, whatever it is, and write out some scripting. Again, there's two ways you can go about scripting. You can script everything, full sentences. You can try to even bake in what you think the audience might say and how you're going to say it. And that works for some people. For me, I'm not a fan of that because I like to kind of wing my presentations and always have that organic feel. So I prefer to do bullet point scripting. Let's say I'm doing a routine about divining a memory from someone. So my points for the presentation might be talk about how everyone has memories, talk about how we all have important memories from our childhood. Memories can be positive and negative. We often have people in these memories that we really care about. Whatever you want to say, those are my 4 bullet points. Now I'll practice on memorizing those. So step 1, I'd sit down and I'd memorize those. Okay, I need to remember everyone has memories. They can be positive or negative. They're often with people we care about, and whatever the other ones were, right? You want to remember those things, and then you're going to start to rehearse. Once you have them memorized, then don't look at your scripting, and you'll just start to practice filling those in and turning them into sentences. And eventually you'll get comfortable just kind of freestyling them into different sentences. And the nice thing is every time you do the script, it'll be slightly different, but that's totally fine. And eventually you'll find stuff you like, and that works really well. Another thing with mentalism is consider the way that you frame it in the terms of the presentation. Is this intuition, psychology, influence, body language reading? That is always a great thing that you can touch on in your presentations. A good idea is to use silence and pauses to build tension in your presentation. Pause. I like physical contact, hand on the shoulder, touching a finger, touching the hand, whatever. I think those things add beautiful moments to the presentation, which again is super important when it comes to mentalism. Kind of let the audience's imagination fill in the blanks and let them do the work. And then finally, when it comes to presentation, I would say try to engage your spectator, make it feel like it's about them, right? Have them think of something always deeply personal. Yes, playing cards are good, and it's a good place to start, but eventually when you're performing and when you do these sort of simple routines, like kind of a cheat code is just to have them think of something important to them. It's going to be so much more impactful and you don't really have to do any extra work. Now my next tip is to practice audience management. You kind of want to learn to guide the audience's attention, their reactions, kind of cueing them when to react, how to react, and you definitely want to guide their sort of interpretations without kind of making any of the moments feel rushed. So you want to be able to sit down with your audience, perform the piece, have them, you know, remember the things we want them to remember, feel the things we want them to feel. This all happens through your scripting. I've talked a ton about audience management in this video right here, so make sure you go check that out, and then also check out the recapping video that I touched on earlier. I think it's super important for this topic. It's important to kind of win your audience over, get them on your side, build that belief in what you're doing by making the process feel well thought out and very fair and impossible from the audience's perspective, right? Take all the subtleties and don't just perform the billet routine, right? Take the subtleties when you perform the billet routine. All these gems and tips that I've given you guys across this series, my How to Make Your Magic Better series, watching my performance breakdowns, there's so much gold, and if you guys take these little tips and subtleties and apply them, you'll have something that's super impossible. You'll have the audience won over on your side, and you'll have no issues. And then kind of like I mentioned already, recapping mixed with stating the obvious, which I'll link stating the obvious video up here, super important in terms of audience management, creating false memories, creating the frame of your effect, how you want your audience to perceive it, remember it, feel, react. All those things are super important. I won't dive into those topics too much in depth. I have a ton of videos about that on the channel, and so I've linked those up above or in the card. So I'd highly recommend you check those out for a little bit more info. So now my next tip is on where/how to perform mentalism for the first time. You want to start in low pressure environments for sure. Friends, family, casual meetups, these kind of things are a great place to hey guys, I'm just trying something out. Do you mind if we just try out something? I'm practicing something, I'm working on something. Let's do a little experiment. You know, whatever it is, that is the perfect place to do it. There are no stakes involved, and you can start to work on these things, see what went wrong, what didn't. You're never gonna get better feedback anywhere. No video of mine, no video of anyone else's. The best way to get feedback is to go out there and perform and criticize yourself. Film it if you can, you know, and just go from there and review the footage and think, what can I have done better? Did I get a good reaction? Did I not? If I didn't, why didn't I? And if you need some advice, here's a video all about getting better reactions that I would highly recommend you check out. Now, when you try mentalism your first few times, definitely avoid putting too much in, too many routines. 1 or 2 simple effects is all you want to do. Kind of quit while you're ahead type of deal. You don't want to overproduce the effects and the whole experience. You want it to be to the point, you know, you want it to hit hard, but you don't want to overstay your welcome. So really just focus on less is more when it comes to performing for the first time. And one of my favorite tips is to frame all of your effects, especially this is great for propless mentalism or new effects, stuff you're not sure about, but especially in this video, what we're talking about when you're performing for the very first time, frame these as an experiment, a test, or hey guys, I'm just working on something, right? Whatever you want to do, if you frame it at that, then there's absolutely no stakes. Still to this day when I perform propless mentalism, you'll see in my street magic videos, I almost always just present it as an experiment. Hey guys, this is an experiment. This will tell me more about how you think. I think that is a fantastic way to practice mentalism and kind of lower the stakes for yourself. At basically no risk, because when it does hit, it's still going to be incredibly impressive and they won't really even remember that whole experiment thing, and it doesn't matter. It's just truly impressive. Now I want to talk about a few common challenges that you might experience when performing mentalism for the first time and how to overcome them. So the fear of failure, I think, is a big one. People are so worried about the risks and failing because oftentimes if you don't perform mentalism well, it can be a lot more transparent than magic, right? If you do a poor billet peak, or even if you do a mechanically great billet peak, but there aren't the presentational subtleties and the important thing that make it feel impressive, they're left with one solution, which is he must have saw what I wrote down. So in a sense, it's a little bit easier to see through if it's not done right. Either you do a bad billet peak or you do a great billet peak without the subtlety. So I'd highly recommend, guys, I think the best place to learn mentalism on YouTube is right here on the channel. If you have not seen all of the Mentalism 101 videos, just head over to the playlist tab on the channel, start at episode 1, watch it through. I cover all of these tips. And if you ever hear me talk about something in a video that you're not too clear on, leave me a comment and I can point you to a video that will help you on it, because there's a very high chance I've already talked about it in way more detail in that video that's specifically about that topic. So a lot of times I'll bring up stuff that I've talked about in other videos. So that's why it's kind of important to make sure you kind of watch this particular series sequentially. Also looking at like street magic, and I think the performance breakdowns that I do are one of the best places to get those real gold subtleties, because I can not only point them out in real time, but I give a ton of kind of bonus tips that I would never think to give. That's kind of the real gold when you're kind of watching myself perform live and giving my breakdown. Highly recommend you check out those videos. But when it comes to that whole fear of failure, there's really nothing to worry about if you just follow the simple advice, work on it a little bit, write out a little bit of scripts, think about the presentation, think about your process, your subtleties, your justifications, all these things that just really tie up the routine, make it nice. If you do all of that, if you just get down a simple billet routine, this is one of the things I lecture on, is my simple billet routine. It's actually a full framework and system for divining anything, birthday, name, absolutely anything you want from the spectator, and it's just a simple billet routine, and that's how it works. The method is billets, but there's so much extra, and I give you the whole framework. Do this, 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 do this. It's just very simple steps. Follow that and you'll be able to divine any piece of thought of information. So if you want to learn that and I haven't lectured for your club, private lesson is the place to go for that. I do private lessons a bunch on billet work, so that would be a great place to start. Link in the description. But what you can do is just think about these scripting, these presentational points, and really make sure your routine is very logical and sound, and you have no worries about being kind of seen through. Then of course, you know, just be prepared. Make sure you practice your routines. There is some mechanical aspects. Yes, practice that too. That should be the easy part for, you know, people doing mentalism for the first time. But also, please make sure you practice your presentations and rehearse a little bit. Now, another big thing will be the skeptics and the hecklers. People will inevitably be worried about that. And especially when you're performing for friends and family, You know, if you go up to your friend or your family and you say, hey, I'm going to read your mind, they're going to be extremely skeptical because they've known you their entire life. What do you mean you don't read minds? Like, you know, that's what they're going to say. So when it comes to dealing with these people, obviously if you're getting heckled mid-performance and someone's really kind of being aggressive coming at you, you know what, just play it off. Like I always say, just kind of smile, laugh it off, try to play it off as a playful moment. Don't sweat it too much, stay confident. You know, when someone says, oh, I don't want to write down what I'm thinking of, okay, no problem. This is where the whole idea of process comes back. You say, okay, well, this is the way. I need you to write it down so that you can really visualize it and lock it in. If you don't do that, I can't read your mind. I found that, you know, people can't focus on the word well enough if they don't write it down. Now I've just justified why I can't read their mind unless they write it down. It's part of my process, and no one can tell you how to read minds, right? That's why process is so important. So that's kind of the one side of it. The other side is don't worry too much what these people think, because the second you actually perform a successful effect, they'll be won over. So my tip would be, when you're performing mentalism for the first time, don't be afraid to start with something else. Start with a piece of card magic or coin magic, whatever you're comfortable with. And then once you've won over the audience a little bit, then say, here, let me show you something else I'm working on. And you can kind of transition into the mentalism. Or you do that card effect and then you do the playing card divination, and now you're like, okay, you can see there, I can actually kind of read minds a little bit because you just guessed the card. Now you can go into your billet routine or whatever it happens to be, and their guards are down. You've already established your credibility. So try to establish your credibility early on by doing simple effects. And then the last thing with mentalism, I think people tend to overcomplicate methods. You know, I'm a huge fan of billets, obviously, but people tend to overcomplicate things like too much thought, too many switches, too much one ahead, big gimmicks and props, impression pads, thumb tip, all this stuff. Keep it simple, especially for your first presentation. I think mentalism should always be kept simple. I think that's how it's the most practical. You get the best impact, allows you to focus on the presentation. Remember, mentalism really thrives on that sort of simplicity. So the more that you can embrace that and then focus on your performance, I think the better. So I want to end off this video by talking about a basic sort of simple routine structure. The things that are important to think about when you're doing whatever mentalism routine you do, whether it's a playing card divination or billet work, these are the things you want to think about. These are the things that you should write down and start to expand on. So right, these could be like the headings for your script for a particular effect. First thing, you want to establish your character. You want to kind of convey who you are, what you do, how you come across. Then you want to present the plot of the effect. What's the idea? What's the premise? How it's going to work? Then you want to establish a connection with your audience. Generally, this can be done by having them think of something meaningful to them. Then you're going to guide them through your process, right? Go watch my video all about process. I think it's episode like 2 or 3 of Mentalism 101. Then you're going to execute your method, whatever it happens to be, the switch, the peak. Then you're going to do more process, right? Once you've done that peak, don't just reveal. Now do some hot reading. Give some readings on what you think that thing might be. Do more process, right? Have them touch your hand, whatever it is. Keep going, keep embellishing that. Take attention away from the moment where you executed your method. Then take them on sort of a journey. Do that hot reading. You know what the thing is. Start to give hints about it. Get some little hits, maybe the color, maybe what it looks like, maybe the size, and then eventually bring them all the way until that final reveal. So those are kind of the basic steps that I would take for any mentalism routine, and I think if you follow those, you'll be well on your way to performing some incredible mentalism. Now, if you guys want an incredible piece of mentalism that you can use the tips in this video to go perform, go check out this video right here and you will absolutely blow some minds. All right, guys, that is it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think there were a lot of great tips here. Let me know what your favorite tip is down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss episode 15 of Mentalism 101. If you'd like a private lesson or to join my Mentalism membership, links are down in the description. And with all that said, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.